Thank you. I hope that's for me. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Baldwin from Yahoo
yeah.
TV, and I am very excited to be here with Emmy-nominated actor, star of Stranger Things, David Harbour.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out. It's really nice.
So you said when you first got the script for Stranger Things, you thought the role of Hopper was such a good part that they would never give it to you because they would want somebody with more, quote unquote, and I'm using your term, star power. So can you tell us a little bit about your audition process and how you ended up getting the role?
Sure. I read the script. I was actually in a weird, funny place where I was. I had just come off a show, and we were kind of waiting to be renewed. We didn't get renewed, and I was auditioning for a bunch of stuff, and I was getting close, and then like not getting it. This was for a couple months, and I remember getting really nervous about never working again, which is like a constant fear of actors, I feel like. And so I had heard that Karma Cube was interested in me for some Netflix pilot or something, but that you hear that and it's just like whatever. But they sent it to me. I read it and I thought it was amazing. And I did think that there's no way that they could cast me because, you know, I am in the supporting category, but it is sort of the male adult lead of like a Netflix show. So to me, those guys are like Kevin Spacey. Like those guys are like, you know, not David Harbour. And also at that point, I had played a lot of villains. And for most of my film career, I've been cast as kind of a villain, which I have my own theories about. But I was like, they'll never give me a leading man role, like the good guy, you know, because of this. And so, yeah, I didn't think I had a shot in hell. So Carmen did want me to come in and read, and I read a scene, maybe two scenes actually, but it was very brief. And I remember like I did something which I normally don't do, like I wore a hat. I normally am not a big prop guy in terms of like auditions. Like I try to keep it pretty simple, but I did have a baseball cap and I wore it because my theory about this guy initially upon reading him was that since he is always hungover and also because he does have all this sadness in him, that he wants to be hidden all the time and he doesn't want people to see his eyes and he never wants to be, you know, so I sort of did it with the hat and we read it and, you know, you could sort of see my eyes, but I was just like and then I remember Carmen saying like, you want to do one without the hat? Like, so we can see your face? And I was like, no. Because I was like, why not? Like I'm at a place I was at a place in my career where sometimes I feel like you just got to go do your thing and they either want it or they don't. And so that was part of the thing was I was like, this is my take and you guys can take it or you can, you know, go find, there you go, look at that. Yeah. Amen, right? Amen.
I want to hear about your theories as to why you play villains or cast as villains a lot. But first, you've said in interviews before that when you were shooting the show, you know, there wasn't a lot of, you know, people didn't really know much about the show. And you felt like you and the cast felt like you were shooting like in this little bubble, this little tiny show, you know, will anybody ever watch it? And then the weekend it came out, it just like exploded and you were getting recognized and stopped on the street, like more than your whole career. What was that sort of transition like? You know, all of a sudden having that sudden like, oh my God, this thing is a huge hit.
Yeah, it was very strange. And in fact, so when we were shooting it, like there were definitely moments where we thought it would be a train wreck disaster. Like, and that's not an exaggeration. There was definitely a moment like, even in terms of Hopper and, you know, I really let myself do things that were unvain in a way that I really am proud of because it's difficult. Like, you know, I had to take my shirt off in the first scene and I know fellow actors who see that in a script and are like, all right, I'm going to get like, you know, and I understand that. I'm like, because I want to work again. And so I dealt with an acting coach, which I think we'll talk about later. But, and he was like, this guy isn't the guy who works out. Like, and so I was, you know, I did that and my hairline is terrible. I don't have any hair and we didn't color it and powder it. Like, and I, you know, he's kind of a mess. And there's like a lot of TV where the guy's a mess, but he's like just so handsome. And you're just like, I mean, I remember, look, I love her to death, and I think she's a brilliant actress, and it's a brilliant film, but there is a moment in Sicario, that movie with Emily Blunt, where her partner turns to her and says, "You look terrible." And they take a shot of her close up, and she looks beautiful. And so I do feel like, you know, there are points in the show where I look terrible. And I remember there was a moment in episode 4 where my hair girl, Sarah, was looking at the monitor watching something, and I came back and I was like, "How's it look?" And she's like, "I don't think it's gonna work." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I don't know, you're like the leading guy and you look like shit. Like, I don't think it's gonna work." And I was like, "Oh no, my one shot at Netflix," and I mess it up by like going too far. So we didn't think it was gonna be successful. We had moments there where we were like, this piece won't work, that piece won't work. I was very neurotic about my own work, of course. And then, yeah, I did a play, and this was very funny too. Like I came back to New York and they were editing it and stuff, and I did a play at Rattlestick. I did an off-Broadway play, a new play. And I did it with a guy who was on a very popular television show called The Vampire Diaries. And he has a hit show for like 8 years or something. And I remember before it came out, there were no ads, like on subways, on buses, in things, in phone booths, all that. There was not a single ad 3 weeks before. And then 2 weeks before, and then 1 week before, there's not a single ad. And I said to him, I was like, "What do you think?" You know, and he's like, "They're probably burying the show, man. It's probably terrible, and they're probably burying it." And I was like, "Oh my God." And then, and I thought that they were. I thought they were like, because everybody tells you in this business, you work on something, and everybody tells you, "Oh, it's amazing." And then they go and bury it because they hate it. So when Netflix kept saying it was amazing and we love it, but then they weren't advertising it, and I thought, apparently they have their own metrics and their own way of doing that, and so they did it. But what was so gratifying was that it felt almost like a grassroots movement, because the show came out that weekend. I stayed up and watched it, and I was doing another play, Shakespeare in the Park. I was doing Troilus and Cressida. Thank you. No one saw me in it because I tore my Achilles tendon 6 performances in. But I was doing Shakespeare in the Park, and I remember that weekend it coming out, and like having all these numbers on my phone of like people that I met like 10 years ago or whatever. Like you just meet people and you get their number and you never call them. And my phone just blew up with like every old number, just people texting me. And then all these articles came out on BuzzFeed, like which Stranger Things character are you? And things like that, where I've never been in a show where we hit a cultural vein. I got the monster. Which we'll talk about the killer villain nature later. But I had never been in a show that had hit a cultural vein in that way. And it really was like hitting a cultural vein because it exploded. Like, you know, I was on social media. I had like 900 followers. And by the end of the week, I had 100,000. Like people were just rabid about the show from the get-go, and it felt very organic. Like nobody was telling you to watch this, and that felt so gratifying. I can't even tell you, like so gratifying. I don't think I've ever felt more grateful to be an actor, to be able to, that's all I've ever wanted to do is touch people. And here you have this medium where you do something and you actually do touch people, and it's like, it was a magical time.
That's amazing. And you just wrapped season 2, is that correct?
We did about 6 weeks ago, yeah.
So I'm interested for you as a performer, what is it like, you know, the first time you shot it, it was unknown, nobody knew about it, and you go into it the second time, and it's a huge phenomenon, and you know that. How do you, as a performer, keep that external success from sort of affecting how you do your job?
That's a great question. I don't know that we have. I wish I could answer that very affirmatively. Well, no, I mean, look, there's two things that happen. Like basically you go back and everybody's really psyched because you've made something that people love. And so you're all fired up in a way that you weren't the first season, right? But the second thing that happens is I do feel like to a certain degree you have to throw it away. Like you can't, and one of the directors on this season, Andrew Stanton, has done Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3. So he knows this model of sequels, and he said to me, like, the first season is vanilla ice cream, and you make vanilla ice cream, but then you go back and you can't make vanilla ice cream again. We still have the basic stuff, but one of the great things about it is it isn't Gilligan's Island, where like Gilligan always is in a red shirt and he's always on the island, and every season he's in the red shirt and he's on the island trying to get off the island. In this way, Hopper has a year that he's grown, and you don't see him in that year. So he comes back as a very different person. So in a way, you're making kind of a different movie, and you're just expanding on this guy, but we're not trying to keep him static. And so in that way, it was liberating, where I was like, okay, I don't have to hit the same beats, because I can't do that. Like if I had to come out and say, coffee and contemplation, like for the rest, I just can't do it. Like it would just suck. So the fact that they let this guy grow was liberating to me. And I was like, all right, I can make mistakes. I can find who he is now as opposed to who he was.
So before Stranger Things, you had a very successful career as a character actor, both on TV and obviously on stage. And now in the era of peak TV, it seems like it's almost the golden age of the character actor.
You sort of can't, I don't think of myself in that way. Like, of course, I understand it business-wise, but I always think of myself as playing characters. So I never, and I think that's one of the benefits of being a character actor for 20 years and then being able to play a lead role, is you don't approach it like if I was 22 and I was really good looking and my whole career, everybody was like, yeah, just do that thing where you stand there and you like, look sexy and say to the camera, like, listen, guys, or whatever. I think that's a trap that a lot of young, good-looking actors get into. And I, for better, for worse, didn't have that problem. I had to develop something in me that understood that I'm not going to just bring like being sexy. Like I need to bring a character to you. I need to show you something about life, about psychology, about how I understand that. And so to me, I'm still a character actor. It's just that I get to do more in the piece, but I still play the character like a character, as opposed to Hopper is not me. I mean, I relate to him in a lot of different ways, and I use a lot of personal work, but I'm not Hopper.
So if I'm not mistaken, you've been on almost every incarnation of Law & Order.
Several times.
Give it up for Law & Order.
New York. You know what we call it? It's the Dick Wolf subsidy for the theater artists. Because you do like a guest star in Law & Order, and you make like whatever it is, 67, 7,000, whatever the guest star rate is, and then you can go do off-Broadway plays for like $200 a week. It's great. Like you can pay your rent for like 3 months. Thank you, Dick.
I was going to ask you how important is that franchise to a working actor, but it sounds like you just answered it.
Yeah, I mean, what I had growing up was like my first stuff in New York was As the World Turns, which we don't have anymore. But like I was soaps, so I would like, anybody soap people? Yeah. Yes, like day playing on a soap, or like I sort of recurred on As the World Turns, and like it was amazing. I mean, you get to go shoot a day and then you can do a play. Like you could shoot 2 days a month and you could pay your rent. And like, as I say, with the Law & Order and all the New York shows, there's still a lot of New York shows, but the Law & Order franchise. And I remember one of the cool things they'll do is they would say this too, is like, if they liked you, that you could play a villain, and then 2 years later, you could play a whole nother villain. Like every 2 years they could recycle you, because they're like, it's like an ensemble theater or whatever. So I've killed so many people on Law & Order. Like every day I've killed most of New York.
So what is your theory for why you often got cast as villains before Hopper?
All right, I have a couple ideas. First of all, I think my look is somewhat unconventional for film. Like I have a very strong brow that I think can feel threatening to certain people. Some people have described it as Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal. Thank you, Twitter. But also so I do think I have an unconventional look, which I personally don't mind. But I think that can define me as evil in certain ways. And also I think it's funny, one of the reasons why I got into acting in the first place was, and one of my still primary reasons, is I want people to feel less alone in the world. I think that in this country and in the world in general, I think I can feel very alone. And I like to see representations of human beings where I feel like, oh, that person understands me, or that person or I see myself in that, and it allows me to feel not so weird and not so strange. And because I've always been kind of a weirdo. So as as that impulse has grown, it's actually gone to places where I want to understand people like serial killers. I mean, I want to, and it's funny because we in society deem them. It's like I watch these shows and they'll be like, cops will be like, he was a monster. He was a monster. And I'll go like, no, he was just a guy. Like he was an actual guy who lived next door to you, did these horrible things. Because for him, that was in some way of a happy ending. Like he, in some way, he understood that that would bring him happiness. And so as I search for understanding people more and more, I really have, that really has become a boundless search for me, is like trying to find what makes people tick and like the weirdest people. And so I think that that sort of led me to villains because, you know, I mean, I think Alan Rickman said it great about Robin Hood when he played this villain in that, where because he was another one who played a bunch of villains, right? And like he said like he's just misunderstood. And like I love that idea of like, you know, who knows like who's a villain or whatever. And we define them because we shoot them that way. But for me, they're just people. They're just people trying to do the right thing. And they're just horrible things. But, you know.
It's interesting, too. We have a question from the audience about Hellboy, which is an interesting sort of...
kind of a combination.
Combination. He's a monster in a way, but he's trying to do the right thing. Yeah. And before we talk about just that role, do you feel like you're going to get offered more good guy roles now, or do you see that being offered to you because, you know, of Stranger Things?
Yeah, I mean, I am much more interested now in playing good guys, to be honest. Like, I've played enough bad guys who like, and now I really do like people that are complicated and that struggle with things, but that ultimately make right decisions as opposed to going out. There's that Capote statement where Capote talks about when he's interviewing the killer for In Cold Blood, and he talks about how he's the same person, but he just went out the back door or something, and I went out the front door. And so I like people that make the choice to go out the front door more. I really do like that, and I hope that I'll be able to play some more of those. And I do think Stranger Things has afforded me a whole new thing in my career now where I can make some more choices, which I've never really been able to do with my career. So now I can make some more choices in the stories that I want to tell and the stories that I think are important. And so that's amazing.
And you've said before that you don't think Hellboy would have happened at all without Stranger Things.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, like, why would they cast David Harbour? Like, no, no way. Still, they're wondering, but like, no, now, but yeah, without Stranger Things, absolutely not.
How did that come about? And were you, or are you now a fan of the comics? And what are your thoughts on the character?
I had been a fan of the comics for years. Like in my 20s, I started reading Dark Horse comics and other graphic novels like Watchmen and stuff like that. I really like the aesthetics, and I really like Hellboy. And I was trepidatious. They came to me because they talked about doing this thing called, they talked about rebooting it, and they just came to me and they said, like, we'd really like you to do this. And Neil Marshall had signed on, and Mike Mignola and the producers were like, we'd really like you to do this. And I read the script and I really liked it. And I was nervous because I don't like reboots. I feel like the term reboot is so horrible. So I don't like to think of it that way. I think those Guillermo del Toro movies with Ron Perlman are so great, and they exist on their own as their own thing. And we don't want to recreate them. We don't want to go near them. We want them to exist. And now we want to do something different. And so in my mind, the interesting thing about the film world now is, to me, what I've experienced in theater for most of my life is like, you can go see Hamlet with 8 guys. Like, you can go see Oscar Isaac's Hamlet right now. I saw Stephen Delaney's Hamlet. Like, you know, and it reinvents and reinvigorates the play Hamlet for me to see other interpretations of it. In film, we get very rigid about our guy or whatever. And so I was nervous about that. But ultimately, it's a character that I really love. And it's someone who, in terms of the direction of this particular film, it was something that I want to see. And it's something that I do feel like I can invest in. There's a lot of really deep, complicated psychology in our script. There's a lot of really deep, complicated character work. It's R-rated, and it's R-rated not because of sexuality, a little bit because of gore, but more because of the complexities of the themes. It feels like an adult movie. And what I want from superhero movies which is our mythos right now. I mean, the ancient Greeks had Ajax and Achilles and, and Agamemnon, right? We have Spider-Man, Superman, and it is the same thing. We are making a mythos, right? But you have like Sophocles writing about Agamemnon, and then you have Euripides writing about him. And like the Euripides one is like a little darker, a little weirder, a little more. And so I think that that's what we're trying to explore with this Hellboy is like, it's going to be more adult in a certain way, and I really like that. And as you say, like he is a monster. I also think there is tremendous sort of psychodynamics with him being an adoptee. Like he's been adopted by this character Broom. He was spawned by Nazi occultists, right, from hell to be a weapon. And then he was sort of found by this British guy. And he's basically an adopted boy who acts out in a certain way. And then there's also so there's that complexity. And then there's also some other psychosexual dynamics about him becoming a man, like what it means to go from hell boy to possibly hell man, but the journey, he never becomes hell man, but the journey of what it means to be a man, and like the actual choices that you have to resist, as well as the choices you have to make in terms of being a real man. And so the script explores all these things in like a wonderful way. And so I was like, this all seems great. And so I was like, sign me up. It's a very long answer for
That's an excellent answer. And I wonder if they'll mention Euripides on the poster. So for years you worked, regularly on broadcast TV, cable TV, and now, how does that experience compare with working on a relatively newer platform like Netflix in terms of like how the production works, in terms of how, you as an ensemble are allowed to work?
The cliche is real. Network television, a lot of what you feel there is pressure for popularity. And a lot of the choices seem to be made around that pressure. So you do network shows and you'll have 3 guys in suits just hovering by the monitor, freaking out all the time, and then coming in and telling you not to do something is what I experienced. And even in terms of like my work, I would try to do simple things in scenes, I remember, and it was very frustrating because they really did just want you to look at the camera or to the left of the camera and say it like strong and sexy like a man. And I was like, this is like I don't know. I felt like a cog in a wheel. I felt like a machine. And Netflix, my experience with Netflix has been extraordinary. I mean, they are just like, and I've heard that this is the way Ted selects shows. I've heard that it's just if he wants to see something, he's like, yeah, do that. I want to see that. But it feels that way. Like it feels like they gave these 2 guys, I call them, they're going to get so mad, I call them all the time, but these 2 Duffer brothers, these hillbilly nerds out of North Carolina, like a bunch of money to go make a show about the 80s with like a monster. And they left us alone. Like guys would come occasionally, but they would just sit in the background and go like, it's great, we love you guys, it's great. And I'd be like, where are the like notes? Where are all the worried executives? And like, where's all the people sweating that we're gonna waste all this money? But they truly just let these guys, the Duffer Brothers, do their thing, and they really are geniuses, but nobody knew that before Netflix kind of gave them this opportunity. So they really left us alone and they let us do our own thing. And it felt like an off-Broadway play or like an indie movie. It was like, you want to do that? Yeah, sure, maybe that'll work. But like, as opposed to all this pressure of like, no, when you do that, like it makes you look threatening. And like, we don't, like, I mean, there were so many moments in the thing where it's like on a network TV, you could never do this. Like there's a moment in, I think it's not this episode that you saw. I think it's the episode before. But there's a moment where we're about to go to the lab. And I remember I have this moment with Joyce where I'm like, I'm going, you stay here. And she's like, it's my son. And I'm like, okay. And I go back to the car and then she's talking to Jonathan. And I go like, Joyce! Like I'm like on a network TV show, they'd be like, dude, why are you angry at the like poor lady who lost her son? Like, it's because it's Hopper, man. Like he doesn't have time for this shit. And like, Uh, and I think that those type of little choices throughout the thing, like even getting mad at children, like that first scene that I have with the kids where like I'm just so mad at kids. Like they'll never let you do that on a network show if you're the lead guy. Just be miserable and mad about kids in a drama? Never.
When you've talked about the Duffer Brothers before, who created the show, you've said that they respect actors, and I'd love to hear a little bit more of like, how does that manifest itself for you as a performer? You know, what does that mean versus working with writers or creators who maybe don't respect actors?
I mean, I think that like, I think that they, I mean, the way it manifests for me, and this sounds so wildly egotistical and horrible, but like the way it manifests for me is like they didn't give me any notes. Like, and I love that. Like, I don't know why. Like, they were just like, you understand acting better than we do. And that sort of respect, I've never experienced from a director. So, you know, and look, you hear horror stories from the director side all the time. Like, I can't say names, but I will say there was a younger director, very well-respected director, working with a very well-established leading actor who'd done 1 billion films. And after the first take, he went up to him and gave him a note. And the actor came over to him and said, and again, we always see this from the director's side. I'm trying to justify it from the actor's side. Is the actor, the very famous actor, came over to him and said, if you ever give me a note on this film again, I'm walking. And he didn't. And it's very aggressive, okay? And I understand the aggression from the director's side, being like, well, I wrote this part for him, and like, you want to let me give you a note? But I also, I do have an understanding of that actor. Just being like, I have an understanding of this character, and I'm trying to play something that might be bigger than what you see in your head for this particular moment. And if you talk to me on that level, I can talk to you that way. But if you talk to me like, you know, do it like faster or what, like, it's just gonna like mess me up. So I understand being protective of the canvas in a way that I never had. Like, this is my canvas. And if you're gonna come over and tell me that you want more red in it, we're gonna have a discussion about it, or like we're, you know, but it's not just gonna be, and you know, it's funny because I've read like Eli Kazan and Marlon Brando had a very specific relationship where, and Eli loved this about Marlon, is that he would come give him a note, and Marlon would say, okay, and he would go think about it for like 5 minutes, and then he would come back and he would give him something that was not the note, but it was more the note than what the note was. And I was like, that's the relationship that you want with a director. And look, the Duffer Brothers and I do have that relationship where they make me see things in Harbour, even through their writing and through the way they shoot stuff, that I don't know. But I also just really love that respect of like, we hired you because you're the mechanic that we want to fix our car. We don't want to get in there and go like, that's it. Shouldn't you do the spark plug? I'm the mechanic. Like, let me work on the car. I get it that the car's not running, but like, let me work on the car.
Earlier, you talked about your acting coach, and one of the questions from the audience was from Ari, says, do you still train with an acting coach? And do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I do. I was just in class today. It was very frustrating. Yeah, I've studied with various people. I study with a guy right now whose name is Tony Greco, and he teaches American method, basically. He studied with Strasberg to be a teacher, and he and I had studied a while back, and then before Stranger Things started, we sort of reconnected. And look, it's I continue to train, I continue to study because, you know, I know that I do a certain thing, but I want to be, I mean, and I'm ashamed even to say this, but like, it's true. Like, I want to be Daniel Day-Lewis or Anthony Hopkins or Al Pacino, or like, I want that at when I'm 60. And I know that I'm not there yet. So it's like, how do you get there? The only way to do it is to like train and see if you can. I mean, I think that people have natural talent, but I also see people, especially at 42 now, I see people that have relied on that talent and just sort of done the talent. And I've seen people who have studied who maybe haven't had as much talent. And I'm always impressed with the people that study and the people that continue to invest in it. And there's always something to learn. I mean, it's art. So it's like, it's never finished, you know? So, you know, but it doesn't mean that it's beautiful every time I go to acting class. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard. I have my own ego about it. I have my own frustrations with it. I have my own, you know, I get yelled at in acting class like everybody. And it's humbling and all these things. But I do find it necessary for growth. And I always want to grow. I always want to get better.
Are they a little tougher on you now in acting class now that you have an Emmy
Not a
nomination?
little, a lot. No, not the Emmy now, just always. No, yeah. I mean, it is true though. The more I've worked, I think, and the closer I've gotten to this particular teacher, the more he sees tricks that you guys, you know, when you first experienced me, he's known me for a long time. So he understands me in a certain way. And the more he understands me, it seems like the more he can get in and be like, let's grow this. Let's stop fighting the growth of this. Let's grow this. So that's humbling.
One thing that you said in an interview that I thought was interesting is you like to smoke real cigarettes in your scenes because you hate watching people fake smoke on screen. And I'm interested in how that, you know, sort of came about, but also do you have any other like performing pet peeves?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, I do study the American method, and I apply it in certain ways. And then I also do the bullshit David Harbour method, which is not the method, but it's kind of what guys that I admire do, which is like Daniel Day-Lewis. And like, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis has a crazy process where, like, in Name of the Father, he like locks himself in prison for like 4 days and has people wake him up and doesn't sleep, and because he wants to go through the actual experience. I actually do feel like, acting wise, sometimes the experience is not one-to-one. How Daniel Day-Lewis may experience that trauma and how the character experiences that trauma may be different, but I do, so I adhere to some of the personal nature of the work of the American method, and then I do have this David Harbour like method, which is more similar to that. Like, when I play a smoker, I actually want that to affect, and I do feel like it affects my face. It affects certainly my ability to do sensory work, my ability to feel. It makes me feel differently, like actual emotions. It makes me express those emotions differently. So that's a big thing. And then the other thing is, whenever I'm working on a character, my subconscious just starts to work. And this is a horrible thing for people in my life, but I try to understand it, but I definitely sometimes let myself go in terms of, like, I eat differently when I play different characters. I sleep differently, or don't sleep differently, or don't sleep at all. I work out or exercise different. Like, my whole life changes with a character. And I've sort of learned that my life is sort of this gypsy thing of, like, I like to experience other people's skin. So I do that as much as I can. I go as far as I can.
So you're among actors. This is a safe space. Can you tell us about the worst audition you ever had?
Oh, hell yeah. I love these stories. The worst audition I've ever had?
Ever.
Oh, God. That's there's been so many bad ones. Like, so many.
Just pick one.
I mean, I'll tell you a funny one. So I did a play when I was younger called The Invention of Love. It was a Tom Stoppard play. And at that time, I was very in shape, and I had a lot of hair, and I was kind of good looking. And so Hugh Jackman was coming with a show called The Boy from Oz. And they wanted me to meet on The Young Lover. There was like a young lover. I forget what the story was, but it's basically like he's sort of an older man who has this younger lover. And my agent called me and was like, they want to meet you. They saw you in The Invention of Love. They want to meet you. And I said, I don't do musicals. Like, I don't really sing. Like, I do karaoke or whatever, but I can't do a musical. And they were like, no, they know. They just want to meet you. It's a meeting. And I was like, okay. We're just going to send you some sheet music. And I was like, why are you don't send me the sheet music. They were just look at the sheet music. They're not going to have you sing it. Just look at it for right, you all know where this is going. I was dumb. And I was like, okay, they don't want me to really sing it, but I'll just look at it. And I like looked at it and I like hum the tune, whatever. And I show up and it's at Shetler Studios or whatever. So yeah. So it's like literally, it was like, I show up at Shetler Studios like in this outfit, basically. And there are like 50 dudes in leg warmers, like stretching and like warming up and like doing this all day. And I like walk into this hallway of like 50 dudes doing this. And it was like right at the right time because literally the door opened. They were like, David, you ready? And I was like, okay. And I walked in and there was like 8 dudes behind a table, that folding table and a piano. And they were like, okay, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then it was like, I was like, I love you, Hugh Jackman. I love you so much. And then it ended, the whatever song ended, and they were like, thank you. And I like left. And I was like, you just put me in a cattle call for a musical, and you told me it was some big deal meeting and they really wanted to see baloney.
That's a good one. That should be your go-to. Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. One is, this is from the audience. She wants to know what has been your most challenging role so far, and what did you do to tackle the challenge?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I think that every role has inherent challenges. On film, I definitely think that Stranger Things was my most challenging role. On stage, I did Nick in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf on Broadway, and that was a really challenging role on a lot of different levels. It was he's a hard character to play because George and Martha are so iconic and wonderful and rich and blah, blah, blah. And then Honey even has her own thing. But Nick is like, often when you see that play, he's cold and like you never know why he's there. And there's a lot of problems with that character. You never know why he stays. There's like a lot of problems. And so I had to work really hard to solve those problems. And it was very scary because it was like a big Broadway job for me too. And we took it to London. Like it was a big production, but that was very hard. And also the other thing is I don't drink anymore. I used to when I was very young. When I stopped when I was like 24. So when the time we were doing that play, I think I was 29 or 30. And so I hadn't drank in like 5 years. And that play is so much about drinking. And I was doing some sensory work about it, but like, it's just hard. It's hard to be that far away from drinking and to really understand that thing. And I would, and in rehearsals and stuff, and even in previews, I got it wrong. And even in performance, I think in the beginning, I got it wrong. But I started to find that play, and it ultimately became one of the most fun things I've ever done on stage. But it was very difficult when I started working on that.
And finally, I'd like to ask, it's always fun to hear, what's the best advice you've ever gotten about performing in your career?
The best advice I've ever got about performing. I mean, the best advice I've ever been given my whole life about everything is never take advice, including this. So like the paradox of that. But I do believe that every path is different and every path is unique, and you can model yourself on certain mentors or things like that, but in general your path is always going to be unique. And so you should always follow some kind of inner thing and not really care what people think or what they say. And every time I've been led by that, I feel like it's paid off. And every time I've caved and said like, well, this is, I should listen to what this guy has to say, it's not paid off. I think you should really pay attention to that inner voice. So don't even take this advice.
Well, thank you so much to David Harbour. And season 2 of Stranger Things will be out on October 27th. So thanks so much.
Thank you guys. Enjoy it.